In 1939, Lieutenant Otley followed the Jad Ganga into a blank corner of the Himalaya, a borderland claimed by two nations, where cliffs crumbled, glaciers shifted, and even maps dared not agree.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
In May 1939, Lieutenant J.F.S. Otley set out toward the upper reaches of the Jad Ganga Valley. The lower Bhagirathi had already been written about often, so his account begins at Haril, a quiet village of deodar trees beside the river, 1,100 feet above sea level. It was a pleasant place to rest, with an old house built by a Highland Regiment veteran before the Indian Mutiny and fine apples for those living off the land. North of Haril, the Jad Ganga joins the Bhagirathi 9 miles away. From there, the path left the main valley and climbed sharply onto airy precipices. The track, blasted in places along the cliffs, remained serviceable up to Nalang, but beyond that, it was broken and often lost under shifting rock. The first camp lay 4 miles from the Bhagirathi, among giant boulders beside the river. After crossing a wooden bridge, 10 miles of rough walking over crumbling terraces led to Nalang, a fair-sized but deserted village, inhabited only in summer. Across the valley from Nalang, the granite walls gave way to horizontal sedimentary layers, and from there onward, the landscape looked strikingly Tibetan. A boundary dispute hung over the place. Tibet claimed Nalang, even as far south as Haril, and so the villagers paid 2 taxes, one to JB Garhwal for their houses and another to Tibet for their stock. Another 10 miles up the gorge brought Otley to Tsonam, reached after a steep climb to a broad fan. The flats there, at about 13,000 feet, offered a fine campsite. Haril, the blue sheep, grazed fearlessly near the river, licking salt from the slopes, though no large specimens were seen. 10 miles farther lay Pulam Sumda, a grassy flat among red-brown hills at 15,000 feet. From this high camp, he reached a height of 17,500 feet, with views of 2 easy but lofty passes into Tibet, the Tagala and the Tsang Chokla, both around 16,500 feet. Game was scarce, perhaps because it was still early in the season. Only one flock of about 65 barrel was seen, the best head no more than 25 inches. The skull of an Ovis ammon ram, found at 16,500 feet, showed that the great sheep and other herds likely came later in the year. In May, the grass was yellow and dry, but by July it would green enough for both wildlife and the flocks from Nalang. Returning downstream, Otley reached Pairung Hati in 2.5 marches. The so-called forest rest houses marked on maps proved misleading. Many were only shepherd huts. At Pairung Hati, the one available was merely an unpleasant dharamsala. From there, he paid a short visit to the Gangotri Glacier, but a snowstorm forced a quick retreat, and he was back at Haril on the 24th of May. There, he met JB Odell, occupied with geological survey work. They spent a cheerful evening together before parting, Otley toward Bashar and Odell back to the Jad Ganga. The Nela Pass, also known as the Chkaga Pass, had been mentioned years earlier by Marco Pallis. At about 17,000 feet, it was the highest route linking Tehri Garhwal and Bashar, and was said to be the one Kipling imagined in Kim for the Lama's journey. The mouth of the Galandra Valley lay only yards below Haril. The first camp was 3 miles up in a birch grove at 10,000 feet, and the next march climbed steeply to Kyakoti, 13,000 feet high, where old grass-covered moraines marked an ancient glacier trough. Camp was pitched at the northern edge of the flats, below the pass itself. While camp was being set, 3 red bears appeared but vanished before a closer look could be had. The pass was crossed on 28 May 1939 in stormy weather. Snow lay down to 13,000 feet, and early progress was good on the hard surface. Higher up, loose moraine debris caused delay. At 15,500 feet, a sharp-crested lateral moraine overlooked a great glacial amphitheater, where 2 crevassed glaciers joined a basin a mile wide. The route then turned east over rolling snow slopes to a plateau at 16,900 feet, and finally up to the summit ridge. Rocks jutted through the snow on top, the northern edge corniced above a near-sheer drop. They hacked a crude but usable descent, then hurried down as clouds thickened. A violent snow squall struck from the east, driving them almost bodily down to the Baspa Valley. 11 hours after starting, they left the snow and camped beside the Baspa at 13,700 feet. The upper Baspa lay broad and flat, bounded by brown cliffs. There were no permanent homes until Chkaga, 17 miles below. The valley was beautiful, with signs that its glacier had once reached well below Chkaga, more than 11,000 feet high. Otley reached Sangla on the 30th of May, and by the 13th of June 1939, he was in Simla, having traveled the forest route of the old Briggs Road.